just in interest of time as well. Another player that I thought was poor at the weekend, and I know that this guy gets defended by Chelsea fans like he has secrets on them. Like he has all the transcripts from Don and Chez's messages to girls. He has something on them when it comes to Enzo Fernandez. And Enzo Fernandez is an interesting one because Enzo Fernandez, for me, he isn't one of these youngsters per se. He's 23 years of age and he's played 200 senior career games, including internationals. This is an experienced individual. He's not an elder statesman because he's not mid to late 20s yet, but he's 23 years of age. That isn't a baby per se. And I watch him in games for the vast majority of this season, even the game at the weekend. And I'm not saying he was just dog shit. I'm not saying it's the worst performance I've ever seen from a midfield player. But I watch him and I don't think he does well. I think he's just there. And the word I would use to describe most Enzo Fernandez performances is beige. It's just beige. It's just okay. It's just average. Not stinking the house out, but very rarely a key pivotal part. And Don, you said in the group chats, and it was a very interesting way you worded it, so I wanted to have this conversation. You said that I'm actually overrating him because I don't understand him as a player. So what I would love to hear from you and Chez is, what should I be looking for in terms of what does he do on the pitch? And then what statistics, what attributes do we put towards that to check if he's delivering? What would you say that needs to be the checkpoint on that, boys?
Don, one second. Don't let Terry ask you the question when he made the statement. So Terry, I want you to tell me what you expect from Enzo, because you made the statement. So let's clear that part first with stats. So what you want to give me,
and what's his profile as well?
First, and I'll respond to you. You made
so when you say his profile, can you explain what you mean by that? So I won't answer your question properly.
What sort of player is Enzo Fernandez, and what's his role in our team?
He's a midfielder. Hang on, okay, he's a midfielder.
Okay, but what's his role in our team?
Why can't you Chelsea boys just answer the question?
No, because Terry made the statement. Terry made the statement.
Let him respond to it.
Yeah. Okay, so he's your midfielder. Yes.
Yeah, but what type of midfielder is he? What sort of midfielder is he? What's his profile? What's his role in the team?
An average one.
So you're not going to ask. So Terry basically can't answer the question because he doesn't know.
Can I answer it? You want me to answer it?
He doesn't know. That's what I'm saying. You're overrated because you don't know.
Hang on. I'm being just stop talking for a second. I'm being facetious on purpose. First of all, as a bit of a joke. So when you say what kind of player is he? For me, look, there's only three types of midfield players in the whole world. Let's get it right. You're either a defensive midfielder that sits there deep, you're either an out-and-out attacking midfielder or a number 10, or you're a box-to-box midfielder. Let's not start muddying the water with tactico talk and some word that we all learn off of Football Manager that we don't really understand unless we're reading it off of a description. His job is box-to-box, in my opinion. He helps out defensively, and he's involved in the attack. His job is to help be a conduit between your attack and your defense. What I would expect from a player like him is for him to have a very high ball retention rate. So I would expect his pass completion rate, for instance, to be fairly high. Okay, because that's what I would expect from somebody like him. I would expect it to be in the low 90s for a player that costs what he does. Okay, I would also expect him to be somebody that is creating chances in games, especially inside the big games. So I would expect him to be someone that does that. Then on top of that, I would expect him to be good in his defensive work. So I expect him to win a high percentage of his ground duels. I expect him to win a fair number of tackles, a fairly high number of interceptions. And I'm not saying that he doesn't do this on any level. But for me, when I looked at him this weekend, I think his pass completion rate was in sort of the low 70s as an example. He didn't create any chances. He lost at least half of his duels.
How did he not create a chance? He created a clear chance for Jackson.
Okay, on that, let me finish talking. So he did hit that ball from deep. But let me be honest with you. When Bruno Fernandes does a stinker, but he knocks 2 or 3 long balls over the top that Rashford runs in through on goal and has chances for, we all say that's not enough, Bruno. I say that's not enough, Bruno. So I'm not going to sit here and see one good long ball from Enzo over the top that caught out a high line and suddenly sit here and start saying that's a good enough performance. So let me finish my point. Carry on. So my thing is this. I haven't said he's shit, have I? Can we all agree? I've not said he's a crap footballer.
No.
I haven't said that he puts in awful performances. But for someone that you've invested that amount of money into, who is out there as your best midfield player, I don't think he delivers enough. In the same way, Don, that you talk about Man United and Arsenal players not doing enough and consistently doing enough in your team, I look at him and think he's someone that's good for you, but Chelsea, at 23 years of age, at 100+ million investment, nearly 2 years at your club, or 18 months at your club, I would be expecting more dominant performances on a regular basis. That is what I would say about him.
Let me just say something before Gal comes in, because I've actually got a dip in a sec. I've barely even said anything, right? One thing about Enzo Fernandez, like I've said, Terry, this season he has been below what I expect from him, because what I saw from Enzo Fernandez last season is not the same player that I'm seeing this season. Like I've said multiple times, there's many reasons for that. Yeah, the way that Poch has set us up in a lot of games this season with a lot of space in the midfield, the transitional ping pong football when Enzo's a guy that's trying to kick, play football combined with his teammates and not have to run up and down as if he's a Liverpool player, as if he's a Gallagher. Like I've said, there's certain games I've come on here. I've told you, like when I was seeing with Ches and Jem at Wembley, when we was playing and Enzo wasn't playing well. And I told these guys, because they were trying to make excuses for him. And I said to them, listen, Enzo just looks nervous today. Let's not make any excuses for him, because Poch has set us up correctly. He's just not looking good. And Ches will vouch for it, because I've come on here and I've said the exact same thing. Against Newcastle, Poch set us up well. Enzo, again, was poor on the ball. Do you know what I'm saying? Burnley away. I remember that game. He kept lobbing the ball off the pitch. He was poor that game. So I'm someone that comes on stream, comes on camera, and I'm more than happy to provide criticism if he's not playing well. But if I'm seeing the guy constantly being misused, playing as a 10, right? Running that left wing against Everton, right? Being used as if he's a Gallagher when he's not that type of player, I will defend him. And it's the same. I've got the same energy for players like Foden. And I'm
Don, I just want to stop you, because I know you've got to leave in a couple of minutes. I get all of that, and you've said that on many shows. I've answered you what I think he should be doing. I've also said, and you guys can obviously throw it at me, and I've answered. If you think I'm wrong in profiling him in that way, I can completely accept that. I'm not married to the idea. Tell me what I should be looking for him to do in games and what statistics we can attribute toward that to make sure he's doing it to the high standard.
Yeah, the thing is, Terry, you said you don't see him take the game by the scruff of the neck, or what was it that you said? You don't see him dominate enough games, right? The other day against Man City, when you were saying he had a poor performance, I'm sorry, I don't know what you expected Enzo to do when Man City had majority of the ball. Right? I watched the game back because I was at the game. And when I saw your tweet, I couldn't believe it. Because I was thinking, no. Enzo today was not poor. And that's not the reason why we lost the game. So I was like, you know what? Let me watch the game back and see if there's anything that I missed, just in case. Right? So I'm sitting there watching the game. We're nullifying these lot in midfield. We nullified their midfield. Man City were not able to create nothing through the midfield. Yeah? Nothing. They had Akanji as a spare man in the midfield. He wasn't able to do anything. Enzo and Caicedo off the ball kept a good shape. Yes, in possession at times, Enzo lost the ball. Right? Because Man City were pressing us quite high. Caicedo was even worse than Enzo Fernandez on the ball. Worse. He had opportunities to get on the ball.
Don, I understand. Don, no, I'm going to cut you off. Don, I am going to cut you off because you're not answering the question. The question was, what should I be looking for, and what stats should I be attributing to that? So forget.
Yeah, but you've answered the question.
No, I haven't answered
because you've asked it. You've answered it already. You've said what sort of player he is. He's
no.
He's meant to progress the play from A to B.
Stop a minute, please. Don, please stop. You asked me to give you my view. That's fine. Yeah. What you've told me is I've misprofiled him. So if I've misprofiled him, tell me what I should be looking for and what statistics I can use to check that he's doing it to a high standard, please. You've told me I've got it wrong.
Why are you going back? Why are you going back when you've literally just said what he is and you've answered the question? And we've all agreed that that's what he is.
Okay. But now you're saying, we agree. Okay, so we agree. So then let's answer. Okay, I didn't hear you. So I apologize. I didn't hear you say you agree with my profile of it. I'm not sure if anybody else on the panel did. I certainly didn't hear you agree with that. So if you agree with it, what should we be looking for? Because when I look at his game the other day, he was one of the most dribble pass players in your team. Okay,
he didn't pass once.
Okay. One of the most in your team. He didn't complete any interceptions. His pass completion was at 70. His pass completion was at 73%. For a deeper line midfielder, that is atrocious.
How many passes?
I'm looking. Sorry.
Wait, hold on. See, this is what I'm saying, Terry. This is what I'm saying.
And I saw at least 3 of his passes in the game where they were simple and he knocked them and he didn't find his opponent. One went out for a throw. There was also a counter attack where if his control was good, he'd have run through on goal and his first touch was awful. So I do look at some of the stats and I also look at really important moments in the game. And I personally feel if any one of our clubs drops 60, 70, 80 million plus on a player who isn't a baby, who isn't 18, 19 or 20, we should be putting pressure upon them.
Sorry,
you said in the group chat that I misprofiled him.
Why are we going back to, if you're not going to let me talk, what's the point of me being it?
It's not about letting you talk. It's about answering.
You don't let me talk. You don't let me answer the question.
You're not answering the question. You start speaking about one performance.
You keep going back and talking about misprofiling, where we've all heard what you've said, and we all agree that's the type of player Enzo is. And you keep going back to that point, bro. You're not making any sense, bro.
What should I be looking? So in that profile, according to you, on that profile, what should I be looking for us to say that's a 8 out of 9, a 9 out of 9? What is a solid performance from a man of his profile? Break it down in words, and then the stats that we need to back it up.
You said you expect Enzo to dominate midfields, which I agree with, right? Because Enzo, for me, on the ball, is a good player on the ball, and like I said, he helps us progress from A to B, right? We're talking about the Man City game in isolation, yeah. Where Man City had. I'm talking about, because we're talking about that performance. You said, it was a poor performance. You want to talk about Enzo? You want to talk about Enzo in general? Okay, I can talk to you about Enzo last season, because Enzo last season was our best player last season. He joined in January and he was our best player. Yeah, most of the time he was doing his job every single week. That's why you barely even heard anyone speak about his price tag and whatever last season, because he was playing well. It was similar to the Palmer and Gusto situation where we finished 12th, but Enzo himself was doing his job. Like I've said, this season, Enzo has been the same player.
My wife just heard you say this.
I'm gonna dip. I'm gonna dip because
you have to hear this. You have to hear this.
You're just gonna keep cutting me off.
My wife was literally in the room getting.
You're just gonna keep cutting me off.
She heard you say Enzo's your best player, and she says, "What does that say about your whole team?" Because, bro, everyone knows.
I can't lie. Let me land my point, because I'm about to go. I'm trying to land my point. You don't just keep cutting me off. Yeah. Like I said to you, Terry, this season, like I've said, no one's denying that Enzo hasn't been the same player from last season. Everyone knows this, right? For me, I expect more from Enzo because I put him at a higher level. I don't think he's world class. I don't think he's a 105 million midfielder like people think on Twitter. Me, I judge him as a 50 million player, right? 50 million player, because that's what his market value was. Everyone understands the context why we paid what we paid. Now, when you talk about the game the other day against Man City, right? The plan was to literally sit back, soak up the pressure, and try to get them on the transition. And like I said, in the midfield, bro, Caicedo and Enzo kept a very good shape to the point where Man City had to keep going wide. Yeah, they had to keep going wide. Like you've said, in certain parts, yes, Enzo did give the ball away in parts. Man City were pressing quite high in that game. Like I said, I watched it back, but Caicedo was even worse than Enzo on the ball the other day, right? There was so many times in the game, about the first 25 minutes, KDB and Enzo were both getting stuck in, to the point where the commentator even said, Enzo and KDB are getting stuck in here, right? You said, he got dribbled past the Moses, and he got dribbled past once, right? And he won the ball back twice as well in that time. He barely got on the ball because Man City were keeping it. But like I said, they weren't able to do anything through the midfield, so they went wide. And the game changed when they brought on Doku. Do you know what I'm saying? The only chance really that I can remember Man City creating that was a little bit clear cut was when KDB played it to Foden. That was the only time when they played it through the midfield. Other than that, they kept going wide because they literally nullified them. And like I said, that was the game plan. But of course, Terry, when we play most of these teams, I do expect Enzo to get on the ball a lot because he's the dictator. He's the guy that's meant to be dictating the game, like you've said. I agree with you. And we've seen him do it in certain games this season. But I've got examples where he's done it this season. Done it against Liverpool. He done it against Liverpool first game of the season.
Don, can I interject for a minute? I listened to a lot you've said, and I understand it. You're still not answering me the question of what should I be expecting him to do in games and what stats can I attribute towards it. I've answered
your question, bro. He needs to dictate games, is what I'm saying. He needs to control games.
Tell me what that looks like. Tell me what that looks, because I understand
it means obviously getting on the ball, like you've said. In terms of the build-up, he needs to be there to help Caicedo, because for me, Caicedo by himself in build-up is a big hazard, right? Caicedo is okay, is decent on the ball. He's not Lavia, for example. So he needs Enzo to basically hold his hand, in my opinion, right? And like I said, when we're in possession, I expect Enzo to be making those late runs and trying to crash further up into the box, right? That's what I expect from him. Like basically what you said earlier, box-to-box midfielder. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's what it is, isn't it? And CB keeps saying 22 out of 30 passes. I'm sorry, Man City had majority of the ball. I'm not surprised that Enzo barely had any touches.
Yeah, but he was one of the few players on your team to get touches. That's not excusable, bro. I'm sorry. Caicedo and Palmer had more touches than him.
Oh, look at this.
Caicedo was poor on the ball.
I thought defensively,
Caicedo is not as good on the ball as Enzo, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't show up for the ball. And this is what you should be expecting from him.
I mean, Caicedo's pass completion rate was 10%.
Yeah, but we mainly build up on the right.
This is the point I'm making though, Don, about Enzo, because he's box to box. I think defensively, or in terms of keeping your shape, he does well at times. But it's what he does in the movements forward. It's just nowhere near the standard. And yes, sometimes he's played more further forward. And I get people say that's the Gallagher role. He's not built for that. Well, get on the ball and thread some balls and start creating some chances. I just want to ask you this again to clarify. So you won't ever judge a player, even on a rival's team, based on the price a club paid for him. You're only going to go by market value.
There's context for every single person that you pay for. Like with the 105 million for Declan Rice, that 105 million was paid because of his CV, bro. Yeah, the context for Enzo Fernandez, it was completely different. Enzo Fernandez, if you're paying 100 million, right, usually you want to go buy a world-class player, right? But we know what the market is like right now, like I said. And if we waited until the summer, we would have got him for a lot less. But the problem is, we didn't make Champions League football, Terry. Real Madrid would have wanted him. Man City might have wanted him. Liverpool might have wanted him. Would have lost out. So we had to go and buy him in January. But me as a fan of the club, I understand the reason why we paid what we did. I don't judge him as a 105 million player, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? He's not here.
I'm judging.
He's not here for 8 years.
Anthony was 18 million value when we bought him on transfermarket.com. I'm judging him as an 18 million pound player moving forward.
Anthony, you could have got Anthony for what, 40 million, and then you lot messed up.
So
basically, he's not 80 million player.
Exactly. So I should judge him as a 40 million player or judge him on what we spent?
Bro, you should judge him on what he is. You know he's a 40 million.
I don't know how football works. I don't think football works like that, because I think what you're doing is actually removing the context that your club felt that he was like worth the valuation. And not all the criticism goes into the player. Some of the criticism goes into the ownership who buys it or the manager who wants them, because it's shared amongst everybody. But I think if we start removing what you pay for a player, I
get what you're saying, Terry. Just to elaborate my point a little bit more, right? It's nearly, like you said, it's nearly 2 years in. For me, Enzo Fernandez has the ability to become world class, right? In a few years' time, we'll see what happens with him. He's still got time on his hands, like I've said. You know, he walked into a mess last season. This season, again, it's been a bit of a shit show. Like I said, he's got a manager that's prioritizing Gallagher over him. He's got a little bit of time there to still learn and get better. Do you know what I'm saying? But for me personally, like I've said, he's not a 105 million player. CB's in the back there is getting mad because he has people in spaces that tell him Enzo's world class. I've told him Enzo Fernandez is not world class. He needs to, whoever tells him that, he needs to tell them to go to church and that. Do you know what I'm saying? Get special deliverance, because he's not world class. He's just a good player who can become world class in the future. Do you know what I'm saying? But I feel like every time we lose a game, like even the other day, people are running straight to Enzo. We didn't lose that game because of the midfield.
We lost
the game because of the finishing. You know what I'm saying?